when you are wrong, admit it. Now, this is a very interesting life lesson for me to start with. The reason I'm starting with it is that this life lesson is what actually sent me down the journey of personal development. So a little story here. When I was 20 years old, I went to the University of Hawaii for summer school. And I was thinking about this today. I went to the University of Hawaii for summer school and I took 2 classes, oceanography and astronomy. There were classes that I needed to make up for USC because I had taken a semester and gone and worked on a presidential campaign for a congressman in Washington, DC. So I had to make up these general education classes. So I was not always the most studious student. And I wanted to know what were the easy classes to take at the University of Hawaii. And I was told that one of the easiest classes was oceanography. And I was given bad advice. That was not an easy class. So as the class is going through the course, it starts to occur to me that I'm on track to get a D in this class. And I can't afford to go back to USC with a D on my transcript. So I call my parents and I let them know I'm going to have to drop this class so that this grade doesn't transfer back to USC. I'm going to be fine in astronomy, but oceanography, I got to drop it. And my parents were not pleased with this. So on the way to the beach, after breaking the news to my parents, I'm really depressed. And I go into a bookstore and I go to the personal development self-help section. Because I think to myself, I need to learn something this summer. And I see a book that is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I've talked about this book once before at some point over the year. And I pull the book off the shelf and I go to the beach with my friends. And I'm sitting on the beach reading this book and my friends start coming over and they're laughing at me like, why are you reading Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People? Like you need that book. And I sort of share the story and I keep reading the book. And a couple hours later, I put the book in my backpack and I go to work. And my job, I'm a pedicab driver. So when I'm not going to school, I'm pedicabbing. So for those who don't know what a pedicab is, it's the bicycle that you ride and you pick up people and you give them rides. And I do this in Waikiki Beach. And right as I've gotten onto my pedicab with my little Dale Carnegie book in my backpack, I get pulled over by a police officer. And the police officers in Waikiki Beach hated us pedicab drivers because most of us were college kids that had come over for the summer and they felt like the pedicabs just created traffic and they felt like they were a nuisance. And so they loved to give us tickets. And they're expensive tickets and they go on your driver's license and they create points and you can get your pedicab driver's license pulled. And so you just don't want to get pulled over. And when you get pulled over, it's a guaranteed ticket. And sometimes they just pull your license from you. So my heart is pounding and I've been pulled over and it's a car with sirens and lights and everything. And my other friends are driving by me in their pedicabs and kind of laughing. They're like looking at me like, what'd you do? And the officers comes over and I do exactly what was in the Dale Carnegie book, which was admit my mistake and apologize. So when you were wrong, admit it. And I proceed to do what the book taught me to do, which is own my mistake, feel my mistake, and let the officer know how sorry I am. So I say to the officer, and the other thing I learned in the book was to always use people's names. Is it okay if I use your name, sir? And he says, yes. And I use his name, I'll just say it was Bob. I said, Bob Smith, sir, I'm so sorry. There's no excuse. I was not paying attention. I just wasn't paying attention. It wasn't that I didn't see the stop sign. I do this all day long, every night here. I just wasn't paying attention. And thank you for pulling me over because I could have hurt somebody. There's all these tourists going up and down the street. They're not paying attention. And the last thing they need to do is be hit by me in a pedicab. I could have sent somebody to the hospital. And I am just owning my mistake and I'm ripping on myself. Like I am such an idiot. I can't believe I did this. Thank you for pulling me over. I deserve to have the book thrown at me. Whatever you need to do, I completely understand. So the guy takes my driver's license. He goes back to the car and does whatever they do with those driver's licenses and checks who I am and comes back to me and he hands me the driver's license and he says, Mr. Bach, today is your lucky day. I am not going to ticket you. I am going to let you go, but please pay more attention from now on. And by the way, you don't need to be so hard on yourself. Everybody makes mistakes. Okay, so he leaves and I go out with my friends and they've all seen me because all my buddies are pedicabbing and they're like, how bad was the ticket? What did you get? I'm like, you guys aren't going to believe this. He let me go. And they're like, there's no way. They never let anybody go. And they're like, how? And I'm like, I just totally admitted my mistake. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I got this book. I pull it out of my backpack and I'm like, it talks about it. So I just start telling them the story and they're like, you're lying. It couldn't possibly work. Well, it did work. And that was the moment in my life where I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff does work. Sometimes you get an idea in a book and one idea can change your life. And so I devoured that book. And then I would go on to devour so many books on personal development. And I still devour books and I'm still here with you devouring more content on personal development. And I'm teaching it. And I've been doing this now since I was 20 and I just turned 55, had my birthday last week. So that's my journey and how I got started. And that's only one lesson, but that lesson is number one, when you were wrong, admit it. I got so much to talk about. I got pages and pages of notes we're going to go through today. I've been teaching this stuff for 27 years. The reason I love teaching about money is not so much, believe it or not, because I want you to have a certain amount of money. It's not so much the money as what the money can do for you. And here's what I believe about personal finance. I believe that when you fix your finances, you free yourself to live your best life. And I believe that when you fix your finances, you free your soul to fly. Learning about money can be simple. It can be easy. It can be fun. And the most important thing, it can be actionable. Let's control the controllables. So you want to build wealth, we got to control the controllables. And I'm going to take you on the journey a little bit, not all of it, but I'm going to take you on the journey that is inside this book, The Automatic Millionaire. I'm going to walk you through this concept of how to build wealth by paying yourself first automatically. Super simple, but life-changing. So I'm going to share the 5 questions with you because then you can ask them to yourself and then ultimately you can ask this of other people. These are the questions that will determine if you'll build financial security. Question number 1, do you want to be rich? Yes? How many of you would just like to be out of debt? Does anybody want to admit to that? Like, I just want to be out of debt. Okay. How many of you are like, I don't need to be rich. I just want to be financially secure. You see, if you just want to be financially secure, right? So here's the question behind this question. Why do you want what you want? I learned young that for most people, money is not enough to actually motivate them to do all the work that needs to be done to become wealthy. There's all kinds of obstacles that will come in your way to building wealth. You can't get rich in days. It takes decades typically. But when you are clear on what's most important to you and it's based on your values, when you answer the question for yourself, I want to be financially secure because of, and it's a value answer. I want to protect my family. I want to pass a legacy to my children. I want to give back to my church. I want to be able to give back to my community. When you can answer the question with your core values, you will then become an unstoppable force because your values will pull you through the difficult times to achieve your goals. One of the biggest reasons people fail financially is the way they spend their money is actually in conflict with their values. When your values are clear, your financial decisions become easier. This takes me to question number 2. And question number 2 is this: do you pay yourself first? When you pay yourself first, what you show yourself every day is that you're putting yourself first. How much to pay yourself first? 1 hour a day of your income minimum. So whatever you're earning that first hour a day from 9 to 10, That's got to come off the top and go into a retirement account. Now, in the United States, that would be an IRA account, or that would be a 401k plan. If you're self-employed, it would be a SEP, self-employed retirement account. Now, again, I can't go through every single country, but like in Canada, it'd be like an RSP account. So you got to do your own research on what account it is. But the most important thing is the math. 1 hour a day of your income is 12.5% of your gross income. Now, I will tell you this, that's a minimum number that you should save. That's not a maximum number, it's a minimum number. Your goal should be minimum 1 hour a day of your income. For those of you who are self-employed, it should be minimum, your goal should be 15% or more of your income going to you automatically for yourself. This is what's going to give you financial confidence, knowing that you're taking your income and putting it away for yourself for the future. Why don't people do this? Do you want to be rich? Do you pay yourself first? The third thing was this. Do you save 1 hour a day of your income? Which takes me to question number 4. And that is, do you save money automatically? How does the average American build wealth on an ordinary income? They save money automatically. I started my career at Morgan Stanley. I was there for 9 years as a financial advisor. It used to be complicated to save money automatically. Like if you came to my office, they were called systematic investment plans, and the paperwork was like 7 pages long. But we would encourage all of our clients, anybody who came to my seminars, even if you're just saving $50 a month, we would encourage our clients to save automatically. And the reason was what we saw firsthand is that no one would save for more than 2 to 3 months unless it was automatic. People would say, oh, no, I'm super disciplined. I don't need to do it this way. People used to be afraid to have money taken from their paychecks and invested automatically. That's really not the case anymore. But people were afraid to do this movement of their money automatically. But the problem is people wouldn't save unless it was automated. So many Americans, and this is also true all over the world, so many people have built wealth because they just set something up once, forgot about it, left it alone, and next thing you know, 20 years go by, 25 years go by, 30 years go by, and they've built massive wealth because the savings was automatic. The key is automation. The key is no budget. Budgeting takes time. Budgeting creates fights. Budgeting is boring. Automation is beautiful. Which takes me to question number 5. Do you know what your latte factor is? People always say to themselves, and to me, I don't have the money to save automatically. I can't do that. And so I started showing people, you know what, small amounts of money, $5 a day, $10 a day could change your life. And it can, by the way, can completely change your life. You got to start somewhere. But if you don't believe you have the money and you tell yourself that, you'll never save. So the thing about $5 a day is you start saving in your 20s, you can have $1 million by the time you reach retirement. Now, it's not enough. $5 a day now is not enough. You need to save more than that. But you need to figure out what your latte factor is. And nobody's probably going to Starbucks right now. You're making coffee at home. Oh my God, and guess what? You survived. People would say to me, I cannot give up my coffee. There's no way. And somehow we've all survived making coffee at home for a year. Some of you here have a lot more money than you actually had a year ago because you're not spending anything, right? You're not eating out. You're not going out for coffee. Our expenses have been reduced. When we start to go back to a new normal, the question becomes, do you keep some of these good habits or do you just go out and spend money again? Now, one of the reasons the market's up so much is because we're expecting everybody to rush out and spend a ton of money and everybody ready to party. I want to show you something based on this idea of partying. What do you think it costs to blow $10,000 a year? It's $27.40 a day. What it takes to blow $10,000 in a year is $27.40 a day, which is less than most people make an hour. $27.40 a day in the US, you can blow that so easily, right? It's $10,000 in a year. For many of you, that would build your emergency account. That would start your retirement account. What happens if you took that money and you invested? I know it's a lot of money, $27 a day, but what would happen? In 20 years, if you were in the S&P 500 fund and the market did what it's done the last 30 years, you'd have $572,000. What if it went out 30 years? $27.40 a day. You'd have $1,644,000 in 30 years. What if I went out 40 years? This is where the numbers go crazy. You'd have $4,424,000 potentially. By the way, did you just see that astronomical growth? Because sometimes if you don't really know compound interest, this is the miracle of compound interest. This is the part that blows the mind away. How can this go from $572,000 and in 10 years be worth 3 times more, and in 20 years be worth almost 10 times more? That's because money's making money. And that's the whole key. So good to be with everyone here. Wow. What I want to do today is share with you a tool that I learned about 15 years ago that really changed my life, that allowed me to focus much better than I used to focus. And even though, I'm known as the financial person on GrowthDay, to me, the money is just a tool to help free you live your best life. I'm going to give you a tool today that you can use for money, but you can use it for your health. You can use it for your marriage. You can use it for being a parent. It looks simple, but it's complicated and hard to actually put in place. So I'm going to give you a couple quotes right now, and you can just write these quotes out. So number 1 is control your time or someone else will. The one thing in life that we actually can't get back is our time. You can lose money and you can make it again. You can lose friendships and you can get them back. The one thing you can't get back is your time. And I'm going to encourage you to learn how to put a wall around yourself and other people's request of your time if it's not truly what you want to focus on. So that's number 1. Number 2, deciding what not to do is often more important than what to do. People have recurring thoughts, everyone, all human beings. Number 1 is, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? We're always asking ourselves, am I going to be okay? It's literally wired into a 2.3 million year old brain of ours. Then once we get past the point sometimes of, am I going to be okay? The next question we're all running around with is, what am I going to do with my life? What happens so often when we have so many things on our plate, we say, well, I don't know what I want to do. And what I can tell you is when you start to strip away other people requesting your time and you don't have a long to-do list, you will start to be able to listen to your soul and figure out what it is you're supposed to do with your life. Which takes me to number 3. Focusing is hard, scary, and confusing. And I can also tell you, it gets easier with time and it creates a beautiful life. That's the benefit, which takes me to number 4. No is a complete sentence. And that takes me to number 5, which is this idea that doing less allows you to live more. Let me go into with this story that changed my life. So what happened about a little over 15 years ago is that I was working on a big corporate partnership. And this was a financial service company that I was super excited to partner with. We prospect them. They reach back out to us. It's going to be this big, giant deal. And I come into my office and my assistant says to me and my team, I have some very bad news. You're going to want to sit down for this. And I go, what? And they're like, well, you're going to need to read the email. And I get this email from the founder of the company. And the email says, David, we were so excited to work on this partnership with you. I was really looking forward to being in business with you. But I'm really unfortunately sorry to say that it's not you, it's us. And we unfortunately are not going to be able to go forward on this partnership now. We're not saying, these are lines, my friends, that you can use yourself in so many ways. We are not saying no, we're saying not now. I hope we can continue the relationship maybe later. So fast forward about 1.5 years, 2 years later, And I see that his business has been sold, and it's sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I send him an email and I'm like, wow, congratulations. Like, you did it. And I'm so happy for you. And he immediately replies to me and he says, oh my gosh, David, it's so good to hear back from you. I'm so sorry we didn't go into business together. One of the reasons we didn't go business together is I was working on this whole thing to just pull off what we just did. And, he's like, but I'm coming through New York and I'd love to take you out for that cup of coffee. And he takes me to coffee and we have a beautiful breakfast together at a restaurant called Bubby's. And we go back to my office in Tribeca. And in my office, I had 2 giant whiteboards. On the left whiteboard was the year's goals, so that the whole company could come into my office and we'd have meetings and we'd look at this whiteboard. Here's what we're focused on for the year. And that whiteboard was completely filled. Then I had a second whiteboard of all the to-dos that we were working on. And that whiteboard was completely filled. So back to the story, calling him M, he comes into my office and he says, you asked me a question. What did you do differently that your competitors didn't do? And he said, we focused. He goes, want me to show you how he did it? Yeah, I would love to. He goes, okay. He turns around in the office and he goes, can I erase your whiteboards? And the erasers are sitting on the bottom of the whiteboard. And I go, yeah, sure. Well, first I go, yeah, okay, right? Someone's just made over $100 million. Yeah, you can erase my whiteboards. So we get the whiteboards totally clean. And he says, okay, and this is what he told me. He goes, I can't believe this, but this is the truth. He goes, I had an office like yours. I had a whole wall. The whole wall was our whiteboard. And we had all these goals on our whiteboard. And he said, one day there was a realization in the company that if we were going to survive, we had to focus because we were just scattered. And the board was putting heat on us to focus. And so we had a week-long retreat. And we made a decision that we would focus in on one thing. And we would take our whiteboard, completely erase it, and put one thing on that whiteboard that we would focus on. He's like, what we literally did was put one thing on the left-hand side. We drew a line down the wall. We called that our yes now. It actually was like our number one to do. He called it the number one to do. He's like, and then we had a not to do list, which I now call the not now list. And he's like, everything that we were working on, and you, David, were one of those things, instead of just throwing it away, it literally got put on the not now list. And the entire company got restructured to focus on the one thing. And I'm like, well, how did that go over? And he's like, it was super hard because people are used to working on so many things and everything had to be revamped around one thing. He goes, but what happened is over time, he's like, when people would come into my office, because if you run a company, this happens, everyone comes in your office. And by the way, if you're a parent, the kids come in your room, right? There's always somebody coming in and wanting something from you. And he's like, when people would come in, if they were asking me to do something, work on something, want my feedback on something, I would ask the question immediately, is this related to our one thing that we're focused on? Because if it's not, then you can't even bring it to me. You can go put it over on the not now list, and the not now list had stickies, right? So like you can take it and put it on the not now. This was his thing. He'd make a sticky and and you can sign it, and we might look at it later, but we're not looking at it now. Remember, we made this commitment for the next year that we're focused on this one thing. And ultimately, because he focused on this one thing and that one thing worked, and basically they tripled down and quadrupled down on what was working best, that's what allowed him to sell the company for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. We're going to talk about your relationship with money. And, this obviously the theme this month is relationships. And I thought, well, look, let's talk about your relationship with money, because here's the thing, my friends. We've all got one, right? Some of us have a love relationship with money. Some of us have a hate relationship with money. Some of us have a love-hate relationship with money. And some of us have no relationship with money. Here's what I've learned having done this now for almost 30 years. we've all got a relationship with money, and some of us have that relationship consciously, but a lot of us have that relationship unconsciously. And what I mean by that unconsciously is that your relationship with money could easily be going back to when you were a child, when you were a kid, the first lesson you were maybe shared about money, not even knowing that it was being shared with you. Maybe your first financial trauma. So again, my topic today is your relationship with money. A couple quotes I want to start you with. Write this quote down. A positive mindset is a magnet for money. My second quote. You, my friends, are richer than you think. And it's funny because I was writing that quote down. I'm like, back of my book right here, the Latte Factor. You are richer than you think. And I don't just mean financially. I mean spiritually, emotionally, holistically. You have more strength in you than you know. I know, Brandon, we always talk about this. You're stronger than you realize. I'm going to go through today, even if you've got what I would consider a negative relationship with money today, I'm going to share with you how to improve that. So those are my two quotes. Again, we're going to go through 4 questions, and all I'm looking for right now is one word. All right. So here's my question. The first question is, what does money mean to you? So if I went to the chat right now, I would write down, in my case, my one word is freedom. What money means to me is freedom. What does it mean to look at what? Okay, we've got free. Look at this blowing up. Freedom, options, stability. Come on, everybody. I want to see you put in here. What's the word for you? Now, ultimately, what I'm going to want you to do is fill up an entire page with the words you can think of later. So someone just wrote peace. What else we got? I was thinking of freedom too. Yeah, it's okay. You can say freedom if that's your thing. Safeguards, fun, flexibility, escape, hope. These are all popping up in the chat session right now. Choices, security and freedom, giving. I think I told some of you in a previous thing about the idea of getting the Finish Rich workbook. And one of the first exercises in the Finish Rich workbook is on page 5, where it asks the question, money is. So I just said to you, what does money mean to you? What does money mean to you? What is money to you? What I want you to do is write down all the words that come to you. Now, later, when you've done this homework assignment, I want you to circle the word that is the most representative of what you want your future to be when it comes to money. Because if you've got a negative word, it's okay if you have a negative word. Like I put on Instagram yesterday, tell me about your relationship with money. And quite a few of you wrote some of you from GrowthDay, you wrote detailed things like positive things and negative things. If you've got a negative word right now when it comes to money, that's okay. You can have that negative word. What I'd like you to do is put a circle through it and scratch it out, and then put next to it the positive word that you want to move towards. Does this make sense? Let me see your heads go like this if this is making sense to you, okay? So what's important to know about this word is that what money means to you will have a big impact on ultimately whether or not you make more money, grow your money, and keep your money. Question number 2, what is your first memory of money trauma? Now, why would I go there? The reason I'm going to go there right now is because in most cases, you don't get to be a grown adult without a money trauma moment, right? Like let me see you guys all for a second here. I want to go to the gallery. How many of you have experienced, I can see you all now. How many of you have experienced a money trauma in your life? Let me see a show of hands if something's happened to you where you had a money trauma. Do you see everybody raising their hands? Isn't that interesting? Like you just don't get through life without money traumas. Some of you have had, how many of you have had multiple money traumas? Yeah, I mean, look, I've done very well in my life, but I have multiple money traumas. So here's the thing. Your first money trauma can stay with you forever until you decide to change it. So And a lot of times we don't consciously realize, again, because I talked about earlier, conscious, unconscious. We don't consciously realize that sometimes that we even had a money trauma. So I'm gonna walk you through a couple of my money traumas, because I didn't know it also until as I've gotten older and I've worked through things, I've learned, oh, that's what made me do what I've done. So, and also some of these things didn't feel like a trauma at the time. So it's really ironic, or maybe it's not, but if you go read Smart Women Finish Rich, the very beginning of this book is a story about my mom and me as a little kid. And I won't turn to, this is where the story is. It's literally the first page right there. But I'll just tell you the story because I was thinking about this today. I was having my little espresso, and I was thinking about what I was going to talk about when it came to trauma. And I was like, well, let me start where it started for me, because it started for me like at 3 years old. So at 3 years old, I grew up in a little house in Oakland, California. My mom had, I remember like this house so vividly as I tell you the story. It was such a house out of the 70s. It was like a Brady Bunch house. We had green shag carpet. Green shag carpet. You can't make that up. I think and I remember going into my parents' bedroom, and they had a waterbed. And I remember going over, my mom was in the bathroom, and where she would put her makeup on. And I'll never forget this. The song was playing, Money Makes the World Go Round. Now, some of you who are older know what song I'm talking about. Money makes the world go round, the world go round, the world go round. I can't sing it all. But I remember I heard the song playing. So I came into my mom's bedroom, and she's putting her makeup on. And I go, Mom, you're always telling me that love makes the world go round. And, what makes the world go round? Is it money, or is it love? And she stopped what she was doing. She stopped putting her makeup on, and she was brushing her hair. And she looked at me and she said, David, love is what makes the world go round. But without money, you're in deep. And then I asked her, like, well, are we rich? And she didn't really, I don't even remember what the answer was to that question, because I don't think we were rich at the time. And she's like, we're comfortable or something. And then she like scooted me off to go play with my toys. And what I realized later in life is that set me up. That was my first money memory. And I think from that moment forward, my mom telling me that not having money was painful was a huge motivating factor for me wanting to figure out how to have money. And, it's not coincidental that I've written 13 books on personal finance. That I've dedicated my life basically to learning how to have money, how to keep money, and how to teach others how to have money. And, as I went through my life, and yes, I bought my first stock at age 7, and you've heard me talk about that, and McDonald's, and then Disney at 9. I was really, from a young age, I think, when I look back on it, really afraid of not having money. And so my original desire to build wealth was not out of what it is today, which today I said my word is freedom. My whole thing today is about living your best life now. That money is a tool to free you. That's all it is. Money is just a tool to free you to live your best life. And I want you to get free as fast as possible, because I don't want you to wait to live your best life. That's basically my entire obsession. Get there faster. Money's a tool to free you to live your best life. That's why I have you create dream accounts. And I also have you create the security accounts, where I'm focused and fixated on helping you fix your finances so you can live your best life now, not in fear. I'm going to give you a behind the scenes look at what top financial advisors do for their clients. Now, if you're watching this and you don't have a financial advisor, that's okay, because if you don't have a financial advisor, these will be the 18 things that you should be doing for yourself. If you do have a financial advisor, by me going through these 18 things, you may go, my advisor is not currently doing that. And that's okay, because you could coach them on, these are the things I want to review with you before the end of the year. Or it may be one of those things where you start to go, maybe it's time for me to hire a new financial advisor, which, by the way, the end of the year is a perfect time to be making that decision. Let's go. Are you ready? Take out the pen and pad of paper, and let's start writing these things down, or in your app, put the notes down. So the number one thing that a top advisor is going to do for you, and remember, if you don't have a financial advisor, then this is what you should be doing for yourself. Number one thing is they're going to check in with you and schedule a year-end review meeting. This is so obvious. And again, I train financial advisors all year long, but there are so many advisors who don't consistently meet with their clients at the end of the year or the beginning of the year. The end of the year, I personally believe, like if I were in front of hundreds of my advisors right now, I'd be saying the end of the year is the time you meet with your clients. The reason is there's a lot of tax planning that goes into the end of the year. Like one of the most important things at the end of the year is have you fully maximized your retirement accounts, which I'll talk about here in a second. It's important to meet at the end of the year to review these things so you know if you have. So the number one thing is, have you got a year-end review meeting scheduled with your financial advisor? If you don't, you should get one set up. I would be calling your financial advisor and setting one up right now. I would get into their office before December 15th. By the way, I told you there's 64 days left in the year. Just for fun and giggles, guess how many days there's left between now and Thanksgiving? Wait, I wrote this down somewhere. Where is it? There's 20 work days between now and Thanksgiving. It's a very important number to know, by the way, because many people really stop working after Thanksgiving. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, a lot of people don't do work. When you own a company, that doesn't work. You've got to make sure people work all the way through the end of the year. Another topic. But back to number 2 of the 18 things I wanted to give you. Number 2 is this. The question a top financial advisor is going to ask you is the following. Has anything changed financially in your life of significance this year? Why is that question so important? Because things change all the time. Things can change on the expense side. Like, oh yeah, things change. You know what? The refrigerator broke. Then the dishwasher broke. And now the car's got 100,000 miles on it and I need a new car. Or my kid went to college, but then came home and is now living with us. The roof needs to be fixed. I happen to be staying in a place right here on the beach and there's 2 properties right next to me where the roofs are being redone, right? All kinds of things happen that change your life financially. You might have lost your job. Business could be down. The opposite could be true too. You may have sold an investment where you made a bunch of money. Business could be up a lot. It is critical to get to the end of the year and ask yourself the question, has anything major changed? It's critical for your financial advisor to ask that question. Which takes me to number 3. A financial advisor, I think if they're smart and good at what they do, they're going to ask you this question. Have you looked at your accounts lately? Do you have any questions? First of all, I asked this question as a financial advisor. I spent 9 years at Morgan Stanley. I learned by asking this question, which of my clients actually look at their statements and which don't. Now, I'm not telling you that you need to be looking at your broker statements or looking at your accounts online every single day, but it's good for an advisor to know if you're paying any attention at all. And it's really important to know if you've got questions about what you currently own. What you find when you ask this question as a financial advisor is that many clients don't look at their statements, and a shockingly large percentage of clients have absolutely no clue how to read their statements. One of the most complicated things that the financial service industry does is create poorly done statements that are confusing to the average client. So if you print those statements, what you should do with your financial advisor is be sitting down with them and making sure you understand what you're seeing on paper or what you see on your screen. And if you don't have a financial advisor, it's still really important. Which takes me to, in the same category, let's review your plan. So I'm hoping at this point, if you have a financial advisor, you actually have a real financial plan. At which point they're going to pull out the financial plan and review it with you. Because at the end, I'm going to talk about discussing with your advisor whether or not you're on track with your plan, ahead of plan, or behind plan. And that takes me to question number 4. Let's review the performance of the accounts. Now, a lot of advisors will just want to wait till the end of the year to review the performance because it's easier to do year-to-date, year-over-year performance. However, it's also fine to do year-to-date performance. It's YTD, year-to-date performance. It's really helpful to look at your accounts right now. We're at the end of October and do year-to-date performance. You can also go back very easily with all the computer systems and look at the previous 12 months, previous 3 years, previous 5 years. That is something that you should be doing. And the reason is, and this was number 4, is that once you review the performance, you want to review the performance against your goals, your financial goals, and you want to review the performance against the indexes that the portfolio was created to go against. It's called a benchmark. So traditionally, when a financial advisor meets with you and puts together a portfolio, they're going to put together a portfolio that's hopefully it's diversified of stocks and bonds and cash and global investments. And they're going to tell you the benchmark that they are putting this portfolio together to measure it against. And then what they should be doing is showing you, hey, we chose this benchmark to measure against. Here's how we're doing compared to the benchmarks. Because that's what's going to help them also when it comes time to do tax loss harvesting, help you do that. Which takes me to number 5. A top financial advisor is going to review with you your risk tolerance. So in most cases, if you have a top financial advisor, how the portfolio got built was not just based off your financial goals, it was also based off your risk tolerance. How much comfort do you have taking risk? And they probably walked you through a risk profile questionnaire. And that questionnaire then helped create the degree of how much money went in stocks versus how much money went in bonds or whatever the money was invested in. It was based off your risk tolerance. Why is it critical to review your risk tolerance at the end of the year? Because again, things change in people's lives. And so how you feel right now may be different than how you felt a year ago. Also, as you get older, your risk tolerance typically will change because you'll want to take less risk with your money as you're getting older. So that is important to do. And what happens on a year like this year and last year is that the market's gone up so much. Stock market's having just, again, a phenomenal year. Like the market itself, depending on which benchmark you're looking at, it's like up 17% for the year. Some benchmarks are up 20% for the year. So, if you've had a boring diversified portfolio, you should be up, again, 10% at this point. If you've been in, more aggressive investments like Bitcoin, you're up over 100% for the year. So it all depends on what you're invested in. But what happens when you're invested, and I'm getting super detailed here with you because that's what I wanted to do. When you're invested and your assets start to go up, the risk of your portfolio goes up because you end up having more and more of these riskier assets as they grow. And so part of a financial advisor's job is to point out, hey, we started as an example with a portfolio that was, let's say 60% stock and 40% fixed income bonds. But now because the market's gone up so much, you're actually at 68% stock and you're at 32% bonds. So part of their job at the end of the year is to discuss with you the need to rebalance the portfolio to reduce the risk, unless you as the client say, no, you know what? I want to keep my gas on the pedal because it's going so well. I don't want to reduce my risk. The problem with that approach, my friends, is you don't want to keep your foot on the gas forever. We have just had, the last 10 years of the stock market, people are, oh, you can't make 10% of the stock market. If you've been now in an index fund for the last 10 years, you've had an annualized return over 15%. So people's portfolios are way riskier than they should be if they haven't rebalanced, which again, if you have an advisor, they should be doing this for you. If you're your advisor, you need to be doing this for you. Well-being is personal to each and every one of you, and it's different. And the truth about well-being is that what's important to me for well-being, what's important to Brendan for well-being, what's important to Michelle, who I can see, and Sophie, and Vicky, and Venus, and Maria, and Ginger, and Ray, and Sheila, and French. Every one of you have a different definition of well-being is, or actually you don't even have a definition. So you need to come up with what is your definition of well-being right now, at this moment in time. Because I promise you 10 years ago, the definition of well-being was different for you. Some of you, the definition of well-being pre-COVID was different. What is your personal definition of well-being? Once you've done that, I want you to rate your current well-being on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Where are you today, right now? My wife taught me when I first started dating her that you can start your day over. Write that down. You can start your day over. Important thing about well-being, because you can, if something goes wrong and you're having a bad day, you can start your day over. I'll never forget back when my wife was my girlfriend, I'm talking to her at work and she's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm having the worst day." And I start telling her why. And she goes, "Did you know you can start your day over?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You can just decide to start your day over." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Just decide." Like, I'm like, "Honey, it's 2:00. She's like, "Yep, you can start the whole day over." Like, oh, it's good to know. You can start your whole day over. Just knowing that can increase your well-being. You can start your week over. You can start your year over, my friends. Some of you had this huge list of stuff you had all planned for the year, and you're like, "Oh, I had this huge list, and I haven't even got to it." It's okay. You can start your year over. You can actually start your life over by choosing to start your life over. I want you to title today's talk, for me at least, as recharge time. Recharge time. And you're going to understand why it's recharge time. Because to me, well-being is all about the level in which you charge yourself up. And how many of you have one of these things called a phone, right? And here's the funny thing about the phone. Without you looking at your phone right now, you have a pretty good sense of whether or not your phone is fully charged, partially charged, or needs to be charged. Unfortunately, we don't have a charging monitor on ourselves to tell us, are we fully charged? Are we half charged? Are we almost completely depleted? And I know what it's like personally to run myself out of my battery completely. And you know what happens with phones? If you've had a phone for a while, there comes a point in time where you plug it in and it doesn't hold its battery as long. Do you know what I'm talking about? Right? Because when you get a new phone and the battery's fresh, you charge it up, battery stays charged. After you've had that phone for years, and I think part of this is rigged for us to buy new phones, before you know it, the battery can't be recharged fully. Happens to a lot of people. They stop being recharged and they get depleted. And then sometimes you need to actually replace your batteries. So I'm going to go through recharge time today, and I'm going to start by giving you number one, what you need to do. You need to take a fearless inventory of what you want in life and what you don't want in life. One of the fastest ways to improve your well-being is to get rid of the things in life that you don't want and to do more of what you do want. And man, does that sound simple, but it's not easy, because you have to really start to think, and you need to spend time on this, like taking out that journal, like, what is it in your life that you don't want right now? What is it in your life that's not working for you? Who's in your life that's not working for you? Who's in your life that is working for you? You need more of what works and less of what doesn't work. That's number one, taking a fearless inventory. Number two is you need to recognize that you need recharge time. You need to recognize that just like your phone, you have to become selfish and make sure that you are recharging yourself. And you have to get clear around, what does recharging yourself look like? Again, it's totally personal to each and every one of you. What are the activities that you do that fill you back up again? What do you do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, a yearly basis? When you look at those people that have success and happiness and well-being, what you find is that they all, first of all, have a daily practice. So that takes me to number three, which is committing to recharge daily. Why did morning rituals become such a popular thing? I think it's because they work. I mean, honestly, when you look at people who are highly successful and happy and have well-being, they tend to have morning rituals. I never knew I had morning rituals until I started hearing about all these people who had morning rituals. And I'm like, oh my God, those are all the things that I do. My morning rituals are incredibly clear. Here's how I recharge daily. I'm going to go through just telling you what I do daily. The first thing I do in the morning is I meditate. I heard about meditation for 20 years before I did it. I heard Deepak Chopra talk about meditation 3 times personally. Third time I heard him talk about it. Yeah, it always made sense until I actually did it. So every morning I wake up and I meditate. Second thing I do is I take out my gratitude journal and I write out my gratitude for the day. I write out the 3 things I'm grateful for from yesterday, and I write down the 3 things I'm excited about for today. And then I write down the number 1 thing I'm going to do for the day that matters the most. It takes me about 3 to 4 minutes to do that in a journal. Then I exercise almost every single day. I exercise in the morning. Now I do that after I take, usually either it's before I get the kids ready for school or it's right after I get the kids off to school. And I also connect with my children every morning. That's my goal. Every morning, you know, when I grew up, my father was off to work before I went to school, and he often came home after I went to bed. And so I made it a priority that in the morning, I'm going to be up with my kids. I'm going to have breakfast with my kids. I'm going to take my 11-year-old down to put him on his bus. And then right now I'm driving the teenager to school because he wants a ride. And I can't believe I get the extra 15 minutes with him. And so I take the teenager to school and then I come back and work out. And then the other part of my day is that I have clear priorities. So again, what does it mean to have clear priorities? My day's scheduled before the day starts. I know what my number 1 goal is for work. I know what my number 1 goal is personally meaning selfishly for myself. And I know what my number one goal is for family and friends. And I'll go through in a second why I have those categories, but they're specific. And I know, like today, my personal thing that I did for myself was I had a massage today for about 75 minutes. So I was like, ooh, I know. Like, and by the way, now I have massages twice a week. It's part of my personal practice it increases my well-being, right? Today was a friend day. So today I had lunch with friends for 2 hours. And I have 2 days a week where I have friend day lunches. I have 2 days a week where I have wife lunches. So these things are scheduled into my week because I know when I do these things, my well-being is higher. Does this make sense? This takes me to number 4. The way I find more time in my life, you guys, is that I commit to unplug. So these phones that I was telling you about, this one right here, remember the movie Star Wars and the Death Machine? This is the death machine, I think, these phones, of well-being. One of the fastest ways to reduce your well-being is to spend an enormous amount of time on these phones. And so the fastest way to recognize how bad this issue is for you is to be going into these phones and looking at how much time do you spend on these phones a day. And Apple's got a little app in your phone. If you don't use it, it will tell you. And it will show you every week whether that usage is going up and down. And I used to spend way too much time on these phones. And so one of the things I learned from another person who was coaching me was the fastest way to start my day off wrong was to look at my phone in the morning. And why did I look at my phone in the morning? Because the phone was by my bed. I have charged my phone by my bed my entire life until last October. So starting last October, I made the decision to move the phone out of my bedroom. It stays in a different room. And I have an old-fashioned alarm clock. And I don't get on my phone now. I picked a time. I recommend you pick a time. I don't get on my phone until 10 o'clock. So from the moment I get up, all the things that I do, now I may use my phone for Google Maps, but I am not going through social media. I am not going through text. I'm not going through WhatsApp, and I'm not going through email until 10 o'clock because I've carved out that time for me because I have figured out in my life that my well-being is higher if I focus my day on myself in the morning without all the distractions that a phone creates. I really look forward to being with you every month. And this is such an exciting one for me to do because I've had all month to think about what do I want to share when it comes to being calm. So here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to go through habits to help you be financially calm and financially productive. So as you all know, my expertise is personal finance. I like to help you get your finances right so you can live your best life. And I know that when you fix your financial habits, you fix your financial life. So here we go. Number one, it's going to be the most annoying habit. Spend less than you earn. Nothing will create anxiety in your life like consistently spending more money than you make. Nothing. And it is the number one cause of anxiety, stress, and concern in people's lives. It is this constant treadmill of whatever you make, you spend more. Not just whatever you make, you spend, but whatever you make, you spend more. So the fastest way to have a calmer life is to spend less than you make. Now, let me just address, I know that this is not easy for everyone to do, especially now because with inflation, everything is starting to cost more. But before we talk about all the reasons why this is difficult, let's talk about the ways in which you fix these things. First way you fix making sure you spend less than you make is making sure you actually know where you're spending your money. And what you really need to be looking at is here's what happens in the real world. And I know I'm saying something I've said before on this one, but what happens in the real world is it's the weirdest phenomenon. People round up in their mind what they earn. If a person makes $76,780 a year, and you ask that person, like Michelle Anderson, hi, Michelle. If I said to Michelle, what do you make? Michelle says, Michelle would not typically say, I make $76,870 a year. That's not her number. I'm just throwing it out as an example. She would say, probably, not picking on you, Michelle, just using you as an example to keep you all awake here like a classroom. She'd say, I make $80,000 a year. In her mind, she would round up the number. It's the most fascinating thing because everyone does this. We round up what our earnings are. And we round down what our expenses are in our mind. And what happens often by rounding up what we earn in our mind and rounding down what we spend is there's a 10 to 20% differential. And that 10 to 20% differential is why people are constantly financially freaking out, because the math doesn't work. And the other problem is that people focus on gross earnings numbers instead of net earning numbers. Gross numbers, no matter where you live, it's the same issue. It's gross numbers are what you earn before taxes. Across the board, across the world, most of you, if you make $100,000, most of you are paying what, $30,000 in taxes? Some of you are paying $40,000 in taxes. So if you make 100, you're not making 100, you're making 60 or 65 or 70. And that's what you have to learn to live below, is the net number. That's number one. Number two habit. So number one habit, spend less than you make. Number two habit. This one, my friends, is key. This is a habit that will build you financial freedom for life. And that habit is this, especially for the young people listening. Save half of your pay increases. Save half of your pay increases, bonuses, and tax refunds. Now, there's a reason why I'm telling you to save half. Most financial wannabe experts will tell you to save all of it, and nobody does. There's no way you're going to save all of your pay increase or your tax refund or your bonus. Nobody does that. But if you think in your mind, I'm going to save half of it, and you start to save half of it for the rest of your life, you will never have to worry about money again for the rest of your life. It will change everything. The other thing is that right now, a lot of you who have jobs are getting pay increases. A lot of you are going to get pay increases by the end of the year going into next year. It will be the highest increase in salaries we've seen in decades. And that is because inflation is requiring businesses today to up what they pay people. And what is happening right now, and I find it fascinating because I own a couple major businesses, is that local markets now are having to compete with global markets. And what I mean by that is, if you have a business, because I have some businesses in markets that the salaries, let's just say, could be significantly less than what they might be in Manhattan, Chicago, LA, or San Francisco, right? Because if you have a business in the Midwest, as example, the cost of living is much lower. It's why people move there. But now, because so many jobs are going virtual, people are moving to lower price markets and getting full pay. And what that's doing is requiring businesses now to retain their employees. They're having to give pay increases. So you're going to see pay increases head into next year. And I'm just here to tell you that what everybody's going to want you to do is go out and spend all that money. And what I want you to do is save half of it. Save half of the increase that you get, save half of your bonuses, save half of your tax refunds. You'll be in great financial shape. And that leads me to number 3 habit. The number 3 habit is to save money automatically. Hello, you've heard me say this a million times. Save money automatically. Do not budget. If you have not yet read The Automatic Millionaire, the new edition, go get your hands on The Automatic Millionaire. If you don't know how to save money automatically, this is your Bible. You can read this book in less than 2 hours and put your financial life on autopilot in less than 60 minutes. The way people build real wealth is through the habit of saving money automatically. I love it. I see you, Chris. Chris Flotton just pulled his book off his shelf. Bravo, my friend. You got the old edition, though. You need to get the new one. I know you got the old edition, too, because it's a hardcover. I love that. Which takes me to lesson number 4. When you read the Automatic Millionaire book, or you read any of my books for that matter, but the Automatic Millionaire specifically, you learn about this concept of paying yourself first. In order for you to build real wealth wherever you live around the world, you have to make a decision to pay yourself first. That means when you earn money, and this is the gross dollars, when you earn those gross dollars, when you earn $1, the first person who gets paid is you. By paying yourself first, you then don't pay taxes on that money because you'll get a tax deduction. And you want to be saving at minimum 1 hour a day of your gross income. And that's a 12.5% number. And the number to write down to keep the math simple, your goal should be to be saving 15% of your gross income. You save 15% of your gross income from now until the rest of your life, and you'll never have financial issues. And one of the ways you can get to that 15% number is by taking the half of the pay increase that you'll get. And before you know it, you've just found the money to do the 15%. And that takes me to habit here number 5. Habit number 5 is I want you to focus on ROC. Make that capital letters. Focus on ROC. This is habit number 5. What is ROC? It is not rock, baby. It is return of capital. Now, if my buddy Brendan is listening, he's laughing because I sent him a text about this issue once, because a lot of my friends come to me with investment questions and investment ideas, and the wealthier that people get, the more complicated the investment ideas become. And often those investment ideas are not liquid. And what they lead to is loss often of all your money. Now, nobody invests with a goal of losing all their money. People invest with a goal of getting a rate of return on their money. ROI, rate of return. ROI stands for rate of return. A lot of times with investments, you'll hear about ROI, or you'll hear about IRR, internal rate of return, or you'll hear about cap rates. That's the capitalization rate, which again is about a rate of return. The number one thing I care about when I invest is, can I get my money back? It's not what's the rate of return on my money. It's, am I putting my money somewhere that I can get it back? Because there's nothing more depressing than taking your hard-earned dollars that you've worked so hard to save with these first 4 rules, and then it all goes away. So I just need you to be always thinking when you make an investment, am I going to be able to get my money back?
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.